Hello everyone. In this video I am going to demonstrate how the UV layout works and how it is how it resembles packaging layout, for instance. This example gives a really interesting insight into how the UV unwrapping works in conjunction with textures and how the UV editor area influences or sort of affects the result on the polygons. So it's a really simple, it's a simple exercise, and I'm just going to be using a cube for it. I always find this example to be one of the really easiest way to understand UV layout. I'm going to call the geometry box or wooden box, and I'm going to apply, I'm not going to be rendering it, so I'm just going to apply Lambert, and I'm going to call this material, instead of Lambert 3, I'm going to call it wooden texture. And I'm going to go into that color. Of course, I already have my Maya file project set up. So when I go to file and I go into the directory, it would link me right away into the source images. And I have this box here. So you can see the box texture. It's like just like the packaging. It's already flattened out, like a roadkill, if you must. So if I go now to the UV editor, so in the UV here, the buttons that you need to be familiar with are, you see this one is the representation of wireframe. This is the one that is shaded, and you can see here it shows you the UV layout that you have and how it is completely unrelated to the texture layout. You also have the UV distortion, and that's the one where actually it shows you if there is any stretching or kind of unpleasant result that's going to show on your geometry. The purple means overlapping, the red means flipped, usually, or maybe sort of, I think for this one it might just show which is really bad representation of the UV. Either way, you want to keep it all white when you use this button to make sure it's all good. This button actually, you can see here on the geometry, this one is activated by default, so once you deactivate it, it no longer shows you the white borders, but they're kind of helpful because they show you where the seams of the UVs, the seams are basically the edges that are actually loose. Like for instance, this one is not a seam, but this here is a seam, right? So now you can see the seams in white. Alright, so this button here is also important to know, these two buttons. This one is going to toggle on and off the actual texture that you have applied on the material. And this one here is going just to show you the checker on the object, and you can see by default the box is textured beautifully, or UV unwrapped beautifully by default because it's just a box. But it shows you here how you're doing in terms of the UV unwrapping. So let me toggle this off. Now the first thing I want to do is select one of these vertices and then control right mouse button to UV shell. This would allow me to go and rotate this. But if you want to learn more about the tools of the UV editor, you can go into transform and look for rotate, and you can actually click here. Perfectly rotated. Now I'm gonna translate all of these guys. So here's the thing. In UV, in UVing, you want to absolutely make sure that you never exceed from this square going down left, or going left. In the meantime, because this is really bad, and if you send it to a game engine, it would just like be terrible. It wouldn't work. In the meantime, anything that we exceed in terms of these two lines, like you can see number 1 here, and you can see here number 1, let me just do this. So you can see 0.1, 0.2, all of this until 1. excuse me, which is here. If you exceed this limit, this here is going to start read as if it's actually coming from this direction. And to prove this to you, I'm going to go into the UV, control right mouse button to UV shell. So moving all of these, I'm just going to undo before I cut that seam there. Okay, so moving all of these, if I were wrong about that, this would have no texture. But guess what? There it is. This is actually has gone all the way and went back in and started reading the texture from here. So, and that's why I like this example, because it shows the idea better. And what I can do now is just take right mouse button, go to edge, select this edge, shift right mouse button and then cut, and then take this face, and then move it all the way here. And I don't even have to connect it. I would make it much easier. I don't even have to translate it. I can just keep it here, go into edge, select on this, and you can see automatically Maya is going to tell you that the other side of this is supposed to be this guy. Shift right mouse button, move and saw UV edge, and there it is. So select UVs, move to shell, and then now my job is to make sure that they are perfectly aligned. And say for instance you want to snap this perfectly to be here, so it doesn't exceed or it doesn't go short. If you hit X, which snaps to grid, it would actually snap to that grid of the UV. And now you can go and say, no, let me just go here and make sure that these guys here are actually aligned perfectly with this line. And then I would select these and say, let me make sure that these guys here are perfectly aligned as well. In the meantime, select this, push it all the way here. Same as this, because otherwise, you see the result. So if I push back, I want to fix this area here. If I push back, there's this. So I'm gonna push it all the way here first. And then you can see these. You can't really see them, but it's just because maybe it's better this way to see it. You can see that gap. And if I were to push that gap somewhere here, it would close. But I don't want to do it just for these ones. I want to select all of these ones and say, you know what, let me push these all the way here. And finally, I'm going to select these guys here and push them back there. And with this, the demonstration would be done. Alright, I hope this was enjoyable and helpful.